It all started with the affair between the Queen of France, Marie Antoinette, and the Swedish Count Axel von Fersen. In September 1783, Axel von Fersen was appointed by King Louis XVI as colonel in charge of the Royal Swedish Regiment with its garrison at Valenciennes, and soon the Swedish Count would find himself dividing his time between Sweden and France. As his romance with Marie Antoinette blossomed, Fersen wanted to give a special gift to the Queen. For more than 12 years, Abraham Louis Breguet had a watchmaking firm at 51 Quai de l'Horloge in Paris. Breguet was only 15 years old when he began his training as an apprentice to a watchmaker at Versailles. He had great interest in mechanics and mathematics, and after years of practice and studying, Breguet became a master in the art of making watches. By 1783, he had received commissions from various members of the French aristocracy and the royal family. Both the Queen and Louis XVI were admirers and collectors of his timepieces. So one day later that year, Fersen went to Breguet's celebrated establishment to order a timepiece for the Queen. Fersen requested that every complication then known or possible should be put in this watch, and no brass should be used, but gold instead. It had to be the finest timepiece that had ever been made. Money was no object. There was also no limit of time to complete the pocket watch. After all, the Queen was only 28 years old at the time, so Fersen was confident that one day he would be able to give the gift to his lover. Breguet wrote in his book the specifications for the watch and registered it as watch number 160. Shortly after, he started working on this project and said that this watch was to be a monument of horology at the end of the 18th century. For some time, life followed its usual course, but in 1789, France was shaken to the core by the Revolution. During the political turmoil that dominated life, events followed events. One day, Breguet was with his friend Jean-Paul Marat, a prominent figure of the Revolution, at a friend's house when a crowd of people gathered outside shouted, "Down with Marat!" As the situation was dangerous, Breguet dressed Marat up as an old woman, and they left the house arm in arm without any problems. In September 1792, the French First Republic was established, and in January of the following year, King Louis XVI was guillotined. Things looked dangerous, and Marat found out one day that Breguet was singled out for the guillotine, probably because of his association with the royal family and the aristocracy. To help his friend, Marat was able to obtain a safe pass for Breguet, who left France immediately and reached Switzerland. From there he travelled to England, where he stayed for a couple of years, working for King George III. For about 7 years, Breguet stopped working on watch number 160. And although the Queen was executed in October 1793, Breguet was determined to complete his most important commission. In the light of previous events, this timepiece became even more special and had an emotional value attached to it. Breguet hoped that one day he could announce Count Fersen that his order was completed. In 1795, when the political situation in France improved, Breguet returned to Paris and reopened his shop. He continued working on different timepieces requested by various influential people, such as members of the European nobility and political figures. Breguet had become a wizard of horology and was able to produce elegant and reliable timepieces. His genius and remarkable talent made his watches unique and highly sought after. Over the years, his clients would include the names of Joséphine de Beauharnais, Alexander I of Russia, George IV, the Duke of Wellington, and Louis XVIII. Napoleon Bonaparte, who was an admirer of Breguet's work, used to visit his shop incognito and bought from him a few timepieces. In 1810, Breguet made the first wristwatch ever known when he received a commission from the Queen of Naples, Caroline Bonaparte, the sister of Napoleon. Sadly, on the 20th of June, 1810, Count Fersen died without being able to see Breguet's watch number 160. But its development continued until 1827. It was completed 4 years after the death of Breguet, who left instructions to his son Antoine-Louis Breguet to add the last details to the timepiece. From start to finish, 44 years had passed before watch number 160 was made. It showed exquisite craftsmanship. The watch has 823 parts and it is a perpetuelle, a self-winding watch made to go for 50 or 60 hours. It has a gold body and rock crystals on both sides, a rock crystal dial, another one in white enamel, and one with figures in gold. All works inside are made of gold except where steel is necessary. The weight is of platinum. It includes a minute repeater, a complete perpetual calendar, equation of time, a thermometer, an indicator for how much wound up, independent seconds, and sapphire rollers throughout. The cost for producing watch number 160 was almost 20,000 francs, an enormous amount of money for that time. For a number of years the watch was kept by Breguet's firm, and when the last of the Breguets in the business died, the watch passed to the widow, Madame Breguet, who sold it in 1887 to Sir Spencer Brunton for £600. When he died, the watch passed to his brother. Years rolled on, and one day in May 1917, a gentleman who lived in London was going about his daily business. Describing what happened that day, he said, "It was a pouring wet day when I passed a shop set back from the pavement near Regent Street, into the window of which I had never looked. My attention was attracted by a curious-looking watch, differing from the usual display, and I saw notice by its side bearing the name Marie Antoinette. I then went up to the window to have a better look at the watch, and I saw that it had been made for that ill-fated queen by Breguet, and was his masterpiece. A high price was put on it, and I went on to my house in Grosvenor Street, calculating all the way, could I afford this? I then sat down to answer some letters, but all the time the reflection passed through my mind that such a watch could not stop long in that window if the rain ceased. Having come to the conclusion that I could offer a certain figure, I put on a waterproof and started back to the shop. It is against my principles to make offers, but when the owner told me the watch was being sold on commission, I was free to offer the price I proposed to give. I examined the timepiece, which is perfect, and said if he could let me have the reply to my offer by 10 a.m. the next morning, I should still be at home. At 9:30 the next morning, the vendor arrived with the watch and said my price, if advanced £50, would be accepted. I could not quarrel over the extra £50, so I gave a cheque and kept the watch. It turned out to be a good purchase, judging from seducing offers made to me later on to part with it. Evening after evening I studied this watch, which is most complex and interesting, with the result that I formed the opinion that no other maker of watches could approach such work, and I have had considerable experience of the productions of other makers. The new owner of the Marie Antoinette, as the watch would be called, was Sir David Salomons, a British scientist and barrister who had a special interest in horology. His vast knowledge about Breguet's work was unparalleled at the time, and during his lifetime he gathered an impressive collection of Breguet's timepieces. Before he died in 1925, Sir David Salomons left a part of his collection of Breguet watches to his daughter Vera. Soon after becoming the new owner of the Marie Antoinette and 56 other Breguet timepieces, Vera travelled to Israel and settled in Jerusalem. There she met Leo Meyer, the rector of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Art was something they both liked, and Meyer became her mentor until his death in 1956. In remembrance of his career as a professor of Islamic art and architecture, Vera founded the L.A. Meyer Museum for Islamic art. Before Vera died in 1969, she left her father's collection of Breguet watches to the museum. 5 years later, when the museum was inaugurated, the Marie Antoinette and many other Breguet watches were put on permanent display for the public, as Vera had requested. But on the 15th of April 1983, the Marie Antoinette and the entire collection of watches donated by Vera to the museum disappeared. The news that the museum had been broken into reverberated throughout the art world. At that time, the Marie Antoinette watch was valued at $30 million. For many years, the relevant authorities tried to find out who committed the break-in, but they were unsuccessful. Years passed, and it was becoming increasingly unlikely that the Marie Antoinette would ever be found. In 2004, the chairman of the Swiss Swatch Group, the owner of the Breguet firm, became involved in the sponsorship of a refurbishment project of the Petit Trianon. That gave him the idea of asking the watchmakers from Breguet to create a replica of watch number 160. It was no easy task for the watchmakers, as the original plans and notes of Breguet were hard to find. It took the skillful watchmakers from Breguet 3 years to complete the project. The new timepiece, styled as watch number 1160, was unveiled when the newly refurbished Petit Trianon opened its doors to the public. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, a lady lawyer contacted the L.A. Meyer Museum in August 2006 to say that she had information about the missing Marie Antoinette watch. Before he died in 2004, the thief who had broken into the museum disclosed to his wife what he had done. Eventually, she got in touch with a lawyer from Israel with the intention to return the timepieces to the museum, but also asking some money for them. When the museum curator saw the watches wrapped in newspaper and put in some cardboard boxes, she felt quite emotional and later said, "I opened them and identified them from their numbers. Most were in good shape. Some were damaged. When I came to the Marie Antoinette, I couldn't help crying. It was so moving and exciting to see it after so many years." The authorities reopened the case to carry out some investigations, and in 2008 the museum made the announcement that after 25 years the Marie Antoinette, Breguet's masterpiece, made its way back into the world. This marvel of the 18th century technology, which is a product of love, dedication and genius, is today safely stored in the museum.